The key trends in defence acquisition in Central and Eastern Europe revolve around a central point, which is an opposition between Western-aligned countries and Russian-aligned countries. Western-aligned countries are those countries that have gone through a huge recapitalization process and have replaced their Soviet-era fleets with Western-built equipment. This is mainly due to the NATO requirement for standardization, for interoperability standards. So this is mainly why this has happened. But also we can see a trend of these countries looking at the West, more interested at buying from the West. And on the other side, we have Russian-linked countries. These countries still are not particularly independent in terms of defense equipment, and they still need Russian support, Russian help in building their own structure and in acquiring defense equipment. In time, this trend has shown that exports to the region have increased for Western-built equipment, while they have strongly decreased, almost to zero, for Russia. So we can see this trend is slowly moving forward towards the West, clearly. Another interesting trend is concerning the local industry production. So countries in this region are particularly interested in obtaining defense programs that are favoring their own local assets, their own local production. So they wish for joint ventures, they want partnerships in order to develop their own local industry. The key procurement programs in the region again show this trend in local industry partnerships and also the connection to Russia. Bulgaria is looking to maintain its MiG-29 fighters, and we're looking for a replacement. Poland was going to address the request, was going to address the maintenance services, but Russia complained about the single source tender to be unfair, and therefore Bulgaria had to turn to Russia in order to request integrated logistics support services for its MiGs, mainly because the engines were sourced from Russia, therefore it was necessary to go through Russia to obtain the parts. But other programs look at local industry partnership, like the Czech Republic. Czech Republic is looking to replace its medium transport helicopters, the Mi-8, the Mi-17. Bidders could include Bell UH-1Y, Leonardo AW139, or Airbus helicopter H225. And again, these companies are looking at strengthening their own position, their own bidding position, by promising joint ventures, announcing new partnerships with the local industry in the region. Romania, for example, instead is looking at replacing its Pumas. It was looking at Bell AH-1Z. But then in November 2015, Airbus Helicopters announced that it was going to build a new plant in Brașov for the production of the H215, and this has somehow shifted Romanian interest towards Airbus helicopters. And finally, Poland. Poland is looking to replace several helicopters for different roles, the Mi-8, the Mi-14, the Mi-17. It was looking at various bidders, included the Sikorsky Black Hawk, Seahawk, Leonardo AW101, Airbus helicopter again, H225. And again, there is a strong interest in building local partnerships in order to obtain the contract. So we can see that even the programs in the region show this trend. On one side, looking at Russia, and on the other side, looking at local partnerships and joint ventures. As we pointed out during our most recent intelligence briefing on Central and Eastern Europe, China has become a very interesting player in the region, in particular because it has forged new trade agreements, new partnerships, and defense cooperation agreements that have developed into defense procurement activities. The biggest markets for China in the region are Turkey and Belarus. And I'm not talking just about aircraft, I'm talking also about other defense material. Why do countries look at China? They look at China because that's where they can procure defense capabilities, especially strategic defense capabilities, that neither the West nor Russia are willing to provide, are willing to sell. And these countries could just want to move away from Russia as a supplier, or they may be interested in expanding their own domestic production, their own domestic defense capability, and therefore they would look at China as an interesting partner, because China is available for transferring technology, not only just the defense equipment, in order to obtain an export deal. This is why they're looking at China. But what does China want in return? Is there any strings attached in this case? There is indeed, and China wants power. Wants the power to influence Europe's political decision-making process by connecting by creating some mutual interest in the region for a specific group of countries, like Belarus, but also European countries that are not particularly fond of the European Union, like Hungary, like Greece. These countries would be unwilling to criticize China with their own, with the European counterparts. So, in light of this relationship, in light of this trade agreement relationship and defense cooperation agreement.